And we're live. Hello,
Hey,
friend.
hello, hello.
How is life treating you?
One of those days where it's
Yeah, a lot going
already,
on.
yeah.
Yeah, you're lucky. I just got my voice back. I've been sick for the past like 3 to 4 days.
Oh, damn.
And I don't know if you can hear it, but it's still like slowly coming back. And today's kind of the first day where I'm like, oh, okay, I can like shoot content again. I can get on calls. I can talk to people. Before it was just like, I was gone completely.
Damn. Now you have your sexy radio voice.
Exactly. My wife likes it,
There you
but
go.
so if I'm coughing up a lung, that's why.
Damn. Well, glad you're feeling better.
Yeah, man. So you and I have been talking a lot about vibe coding, and I'm slowly, I've been dipping my toe in the water for like the past 2 to 3 months. And to give you kind of a background, when ChatGPT 3.5 came out, I was like most people, and I was like, okay, how far can I push this? Right. So like I tested blog writing. I tested like all like the creative writing, what it could
Hmm.
do with writing. And then I was like, well, if it can write, like, couldn't it write code? And then I figured out it could write code actually decently well. So like, let me test this. And I used it to create a Chrome extension, like a super basic, I forget even what it was. But then, ever since then, I was like, I should like really start because I love building things like on the
Hmm.
internet with, I got started building WordPress sites. I've always loved kind of building out like websites and things like that. And, ever since I saw Lovable come out and Bolt.new and all these really cool like vibe coding tools, I'm like, I gotta get back into that. So I built this really cool tool that I think is cool. I kind of built it for myself. Essentially, what it does is I used Lovable to do it. I hooked it up to Flux Context Pro. So, do you know all the image models? You know Flux, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah. So what it allows you to do is upload an image of yourself and then choose from a list of different fashion styles, right? So you could do like business casual, you could do formal, things like that. I have a list of like 30 for men and 30 for women right now. And I hooked it up so that you can select those, test out different styles. It'll show you different like clothing, you wearing different clothing. And then I hooked it up to ChatGPT to be able to identify the clothing items. And then when ChatGPT identifies each of those different clothing items, it runs it through the Amazon API, right?
Oh.
So then you can automatically find those clothing items. And I did it originally so you could find kind of like not like the cheapest versions, but like budget versions of them. So
Hmm.
you can like like hypothetically, you could log into this app, test out a bunch of different styles. If you find a style that you like, you can immediately go right over to Amazon and purchase it for not a ton of money. And one other thing that I did because I have a bunch of, I have experience in like the affiliate marketing
I was
world.
gonna ask, yeah.
So I was like, let me hook up my Amazon affiliate,
Yep.
So I hooked up my affiliate tag. So every time someone would make a purchase, I should technically make a commission. So I was like, oh, this is kind of a neat little app. So I'm finishing it up. And once I kind of have like the first version, love to send it to you so you could be like, hey, you did all of this wrong, or this is, you know what I mean, like because the security and more of like of that is where I'm kind of like worried. And I've done deep dives in terms of like what to watch out for and things like that. I do know it's not necessarily something that would scale really well, but it's cool what you could do with these apps.
Yeah. Yeah. That's sick. I mean, that's awesome. Like even if it's just, the initial idea or MVP, getting that out there, like that's such a That's such like a validating thing. Like, you know, I can do this.
Yeah,
That's a cool
100%.
spin on the you know, generating photos of yourself.
Yeah, I'm always like trying to figure out like right because like anyone can go into ChatGPT or anyone can kind of go over to like FluxCon. Like there's the a Black Forest like playground, so you go onto the site directly of the person or the company that made that Flux Context model and just play around and kind of do something similar. Although my prompts are really good in that they work 99% of the time. Like oftentimes when you're generating images, specifically like fashion or anything like that, it'll sometimes like mess it up, you know. But I've kind of nailed the prompts really well. And what's cool is like you can regenerate. So if you don't like the first style, you can regenerate and try that style again. And then you have like a history, right? So you can like go back to your previous styles, and then you can favorite ones that you like, and that way you can use it over and over again. I'm
Yeah.
pumped. Yeah, I'm. It's more of one of those things where in the back of my head I was like, oh, I really want to do this, and this is one of those things where I was like, I'm just gonna do it. Like I'm gonna just set aside the time. That's the hardest thing right now because we both like run businesses and
Yeah.
we're both like creating content. It's always like hard to like carve out the time. I'm like, and because I got sick, that was one of the things where I was like, okay, I'm sick. I can't create content. Let me just make sure that I dedicate X amount of hours to this because I can't talk.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been really fun. And I think anyone right now has the ability to create something cool. And that's what's amazing to me is like you can just have an idea, go into one of these and be like, create it. And
Hmm.
you can get a good like sense of what it would look like. Then you can kind of, figure out connecting it to a database, making sure that you have authentication, all that kind of stuff.
So you use Lovable for the main part, and
Yeah.
then Flux, and then Amazon API.
Yeah, so it's lovable to build out the entire front end, then connects to Flux, and then from Flux, once you have your image, you can then click a little button under it that says "Find this outfit," and then it takes that image that you generated and it runs it through ChatGPT to identify all the different clothing items and puts it in JSON, like I don't know if it's JSON or some type of format that's necessary for Amazon to be able to understand what those clothing items are. So essentially, searches for the Amazon API to run so they can find different pieces of clothing. And then I output maybe like 3 or 4 max different clothing items that you can choose from. It'll have obviously the name of the item, a little picture of it, and then the price. So you can kind of just, from there, just look at which ones you want. And then if you don't like those items, you can just refresh. I have like a little like update this outfit like thing, and you just refresh. But yeah, it's very simple. Like, but what I'd love to do is add, and this is kind of my initial idea, but I bit off a little bit more than I could chew, is you could see an outfit or like take a picture of your friend and then you could upload that and your photo and be like, put this outfit on me, and then do the find this outfit thing where it's like it'll find like maybe not the exact outfit, like it's not amazing at finding the exact thing that you're wearing, but it finds a version that's like 80% close, which is kind of cool. Like it's not terrible. It's actually really really cool. I'm pretty impressed.
So is this just like a for funsies project, or are you trying to like make money from this, or
Well, it's
what's
a
the goal?
bit of me working with Lovable, as
Okay.
well as before working with them, I was like, I want to just test myself to see if I can build something and put it out there and charge something for it just to get a sense of like what that looks like. And even if I like fall, on my flat on my face, like I'll at least learn something from the experience.
Mm.
So So yeah, that's one of the reasons why I'm like, oh, I need people to kind of like test this before, poke and prod it and find the bugs, because I'll even be using it every once in a while and be like, like there's a bug. I need to like right
Yeah.
before this call in the morning, I was like, oh, it was like on some of the generations, it was like when I was finding the outfit, it would sometimes put in the opposite gender's clothes. So then I had to kind of go back and make sure that I had a way to make sure that when we were searching, like when we were searching on Amazon, we were only searching for the gender that is picked. So little bugs like that, but overall, it's like working pretty well. Now it's just kind of like more of just like polishing it up.
And then what about the how like did Lovable do authentication? Like where you create an account and sign up, or how does that work?
Yeah, I do that through Supabase.
Okay.
So yeah, everything runs essentially through like Supabase is like the database and the back end. Um, and yeah, I mean it seems to be working pretty well. Like I've tested it on multiple different accounts, kind of checking for all the different errors and things like that. Um, you know, I a lot of the things that like one of the good things about like working with Lovable is that whenever you don't know something, you could just go over to ChatGPT and just be like, hey, like what are some of the security issues I should look out for when building a site in Lovable, or when I'm creating an app that does this, right? Like one of the things is I don't want people to find any way to be able to use the app if they have not paid, right? Because there could be workarounds, or there could be a bug that someone maybe finds a way into the app itself. So things like that, or rate limiting, so you don't have people like bots like crawling the web to be like, oh, okay, let me find if I can like find a way in. Forcing strong passwords. It's really like once you're able to figure out that you can use ChatGPT almost as like the like the software engineer, and you're kind of like the between the senior software engineer and the junior coder that is Lovable, and you're basically just bridging the gap. Like that's where the real power is, because I'm basically just kind of checking things, moving back and forth between both of them.
Yeah. So you got rate limits built in?
Yeah, I have rate limits built in. You can only use it up to a certain point every month, right? So and then it resets. Rate limits built in for
Okay.
like every like 60 seconds. I can't use it more than X amount of time, or something like that. Um, yeah, I tried to like also just think myself like if someone were to like abuse this, like how would they abuse this? As well as I put limits on my accounts, right? So one thing that you can do with OpenAI is you can say like in a month I don't want to spend more than $100. Now the good in that is that you won't spend more than $100. The bad in that is that, let's say hypothetically, I post this on Twitter or Reddit or something, and I think like, oh, it's just going to be like, it's not going to be go that far, and then it gets like 1,000 upvotes or something crazy like that, and then all of a sudden I run through that budget because everyone signs up, and now no one can generate anything because I've hit my limit on of my OpenAI API.
Yeah.
That's the issue, but just for now, my goal isn't like I'm gonna make this a viral app. It's more of I want to test myself, one, and two, I want to create something, put it out in the world, and see if people will pay for it.
Yeah. Well, it's good that you already thought of those things, 'cause that was the first thing that I would basically test to see if there's a vulnerability around me being able to pull those endpoints that I could just run through your entire like,
Right,
not that I would actually do it, but like,
right, right,
oh, if
right,
it's open and available, like just be able to send 1,000 requests in a second, and then that either runs through your budget or it crashes the whole app.
right. Yeah,
Like one of the concepts that I've learned lately with like parallel processing is like this concept of workers, where we can spin up worker, like different individual workers that can then process bits of data sequentially,
Yeah.
but then also all at the same time parallel.
Yeah.
So like
Yeah.
we have 15 different workers at the same time. We can split the load of, like for example, with Stammer, where we do auto rescraping every 24 hours, and
Mm.
there potentially could be tens of thousands of URLs that need to be auto rescraped every 24 hours. Instead of doing those one after the another sequentially, we can now split them up and do them all at the same time with different workers in parallel. So that way the load on the server is less at any given time
Right.
when that process is running, which then allows new users to still be able to scrape things efficiently and quickly without it affecting the auto scraping stuff.
Right.
And like that back and forth is something that I've realized that we've not been able to replicate that with any vibe coding tool, Cursor, Claude Code, or anything really. It's like these from my experience, it goes from the front end directly to a database, like with Supabase, like with what you're saying,
Yeah.
but it skips the true back end. It skips that piece where there is that back end processing that needs to happen in order to make it so that way it's not just going from front end to API endpoint request and then back.
Right.
Because at a certain point that it's inevitable that that will fail.
Right.
So then it's like, okay, now we need to push it to like this middle back end piece that has the processing step to organize everything and make sure that the server can handle that traffic at scale, depending on if it does go viral. And we are now seeing that too. Like we did a paid post with a Twitter influencer, and our traffic went crazy on Friday right after he had like 500K on Twitter.
Oh, nice.
And
Who do you mind me asking who it was?
Hassan Tor.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I've seen him before. I think I
Probably
follow
seen
him.
it. Like
Yeah.
considering how similar our feeds are, like
Yeah, I'm pretty sure
Probably seen him.
he popped up before.
And so we were just like, yeah, we want to do a like a simple thread about our product and just see if it does anything. And it definitely did a lot. Like it was very interesting to see how many people above our average signed up, not even just the ones that were attributed direct to the link, because I know that regardless of where people see Stammer, they will go direct. They won't click on the link. They'll just go direct.
Sure, yeah.
So we had spikes in traffic on both fronts, from direct and referral traffic. And because we have this middle piece of processing that we've been working on for years now, we can easily scale up our server load when we have spikes to be able to make sure that the app still is, quick and snappy and is working. And we just did another upgrade where we now have, more CPUs, more RAM to be able to facilitate that.
Yeah, is it CloudFront that you're using for that?
No, we're using another one.
Okay.
I'll tell you off camera.
Yeah. Because when I've worked on building sites before, we've dealt with something similar, and that level of like the tech oftentimes goes above my head or over my head. So, but I do know that I've had to deal with things like CDNs, content delivery networks, in the past that essentially will break up the content across different servers. So that way, if someone's in Virginia and they can access the Virginia server, or if they're in California, they'll access the California server. But also, I've had to, when working on big sites like that, had to upgrade our hosting to be able to have different like PHP workers. So it's kind of, I believe, the same like strategy where you have, if you're getting a ton of traffic, they can essentially break up the workload so that way not everyone is going to that same endpoint. But yeah, I guess to tie it back to like the whole like vibe coding thing is like it is at its best a great way to just get ideas out there, right? So
Yeah.
I think anyone who's thinking about an idea should, because a lot of these tools they have free plans, right? And they may not have like a ton of credits on those free plans, but 5 to 10 credits will get you kind of far in terms of like even just building out the front end. And just that alone, if you were to go to a designer even and be like, hey, I have this idea of X, Y, and Z app or website or mobile app, and you were to tell that designer that, they would say, okay, to design this is going to cost you at least $1,000. So like you're skipping that step entirely, and now you have the ability to essentially build out a working front end just by talking with an AI, which is crazy. And then if you do want to take it to that next step, you could get essentially a working MVP that you can then move over to or work with like an agency or someone to actually build it out in the right way. And I think that's kind of the way to think about these tools is like it gets your foot in the door and then allows you to just test out the idea. And that's kind of what I'm doing with this is like, let me just test out the idea. I have no plans of being like, I'm going to, in the next 30 days, make $1 million off of this app. It's more of like, I want to see if I can go from idea to create something to make $20. You know what I mean? And then, best case scenario, I, continue working on it. Worst case scenario, I just say, hey, that was a fun little project. Let me move on to the next thing.
Definitely. Yeah. I find that it's very, I use it daily, honestly, to create mock-ups of different edits or updates in the platform and making those changes rather than just saying it. I can give them, a full working visual or demo. And then with other things too that I think is more applicable to the average person, which is like if you're building your web, like I think more people now are building their own websites than before, but maybe not everyone's at the level like where you're at or building, full on apps. It's like if you're still building your website, Lovable has, you can do some cool things with Lovable as well. But what I've started to play around with more is how to integrate some of these things within other platforms. It's like maybe I don't want to change my hosting and potentially destroy some of my SEO juice,
Sure.
or whatever it may be. And so one of the things that I started doing is taking like ideas or screenshots, and maybe I would even have them be created in Lovable. Like I would take a screenshot of a part of our application and then I would put it into Claude and I'm like, okay, now redesign this in a unique HTML element that I could then place in a code block on my website. And instead of me going and designing an image in Canva that represents the interface, I could have Claude design it in HTML, which then becomes a dynamic element when the page scales from mobile to desktop.
Yep.
And it looks better than what I probably could have designed in Canva in the first place.
Yeah, right. No, I think using it like that is incredibly beneficial, as well as like the average business person. This is one of the use cases that I see or that I've thought of that I don't see a lot of people using it for is just basic dashboards. Like a lot of people use all these third-party external tools.
Yeah.
And they cost a lot of money. And one of the things that you could do very easily with Lovable or really any of these, vibe coding tools, but is you can say, hey, I need a dashboard of XYZ. I need to integrate, Google Analytics, Facebook ads, and I want you to make it look nice. With a lot of these dashboards, you know how hard it is, like I've had to deal with this is like finding these dashboard like SaaS companies and then integrate all of them into it, and then they charge you a ton of money for something that's like super super basic,
Yep.
or they're extremely hard to like use and get set up correctly. So that is, I think, even just a basic dashboard of just, how are sales doing today compared to, analytics of traffic, or like basic things that maybe you need to see from just a high level. You could
Yeah.
get a one-page dashboard done in less than an hour.
Yeah. We did exactly that for our analytics, like our super user analytics
Oh, awesome.
for me and my team, where instead of having it in any third party, we're just like, let's just build it into our app and only super users can see it. And the whole team now uses analytics way more than any time in the past, which is fantastic.
Yeah. Because a lot of them are hard to use. A lot of them, they have really weird like UIs,
Mhm.
and they're just hard to understand. I mean, I know this from using them myself and then having to jump on a call and screen share, and then like things just look weird. Whereas you can create a little one pager for a client and shoot it off to them and impress them. You know what I
Yep.
mean?
So, and this is an example of, so this is a feature called Master Chat, which is like a chat GPT style like interface where people can build agents and then put them in the little drop down here, and then their clients can just go in here and chat with it like they would with ChatGPT, but it's with a custom agent that's built for their business.
That's awesome.
And I was like, okay, let me just take a screenshot of this, and then I put that into Claude and then had it design the element, and now I have this interface, which is on the front end, like slightly interactive, where you can kind of play, click things and move around. And like this would have taken me hours, probably, maybe even days to design as an image.
Yeah.
But like just to get the concept across. And now I can just go from screenshot to something that's pretty relevant very quickly, and it just works.
Yeah, yeah, man, it's crazy at what you can do. And now that I've been playing with, a lot of these tools, specifically Lovable, I'm like, I'm like trying to figure out like what's like, how can I push, like, how can I get to the next level, right? Like if it's a video game, how can I get to that next level? And so I've been exploring Claude Code, which everyone's kind of in love with, these days because its coding ability is like absolutely phenomenal. And at first, when I had first seen it, I was scared a little bit because I've never dealt with like a terminal before. I've never, very like rarely have I ever had to go in the terminal, and whenever I am, I'm always like, oh my God, I'm gonna like take something down on my computer. Like I'm going to break my computer.
I'm going to delete the OS.
Yeah, exactly. But what's cool is they actually make it really easy to use. So once you get it, so you can essentially use like an IDE. So something like Cursor, or you can use like VS Code, which the IDE is basically allows you to like write code, right? And you can bring up the terminal in that IDE, so that code writer, and you can install Claude Code in that terminal, and then it essentially just walks you through what you can do. So it's like, okay, which model do you want to use? And then you just select it. And it's way easier than I thought it was going to be. Like I thought I was going to have a really hard time with it. But now, yeah, I'm playing around with Claude Code and trying to figure out like what's the next, like after I do this little like test, like what's the next thing I could build. And I have a mobile app like on my mind. Like I'd love for the next bigger thing to be a mobile app.
Yeah, I think we talked about this last week. Like that is definitely a big shiny object in the market right now, of like, oh, building these apps and making so much money and all these things. And
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, that's been a tough shiny object for me to actively avoid, to be honest.
I'm sure, yeah. I mean, with the way things are evolving in AI, specifically like AI coding, you know, it's now becoming easier and easier to do a lot of these things, which is why, I texted you yesterday and I was like, man, is this agency idea like a good idea? Because I've been thinking about, a lot of the same things that you've been thinking about in
Yeah.
terms of like, where are things going? How can I, take advantage of, all of these different tools? And, because we think that when these tools and these things come out, like everyone in the world knows about them. But the truth is like when, the vast majority of the world doesn't know that you can use Lovable to build an app the way that I did, charge, $5 a month or $5 to use it and launch it and make like however much money, or do the same with like Claude Code or whatever to building a mobile app. So there is like this gap in the market right now where people realize you can do these things, launch apps and market them on TikTok or Reddit or wherever. So yeah, I think, and I don't know where I was going with that, but I went off in like a giant tangent. But I'm like in a similar situation where I'm like, I want to see how far I can push these tools to, because I'm not a coder, and I want to see how far I can kind of like push them without having a lot of like this technical background.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think it's only going to improve. The big thing that I've learned is maintenance, updates, feature additions, scope creep are 70% or more of like the overall life cycle of any application or any
Sure.
product. And inevitably, the more users that you have, the more features that you have, the more complex the code base becomes, which then makes it a little bit more difficult every single time for these AI tools to have full context. Like our Stammer's code base is literally too large for it to be loaded into context windows for a cursor. So we have to be very specific on, this piece or this module, only look at this piece. But if it's only looking at this piece, then it doesn't have the context of the entire architecture of the rest of the application. And
Right.
because we're doing fairly complicated, like Stammer is way more complicated than I ever thought it was going to be,
Really?
because we have the different levels of white labeling and
Oh
reselling.
yeah.
So for like a normal application, that probably wouldn't be an issue. But because we are doing that type of complex system or organization of systems, unfortunately, we've realized through trial and error that it's just not possible. Like
Right.
we need unlimited context window for free, basically,
Right.
in order for us to like load the whole thing in, and then at that point it probably would work, but it would take a lot of time, and then yeah, just the amount of like raw energy in terms of tokens that it's using in order to process all of that data would be quite significant.
Right.
But
That's one of the reasons why I was kind of thinking, the mobile app route, because, well, one, I really like that you can create something simple that's not necessarily massive and put it out there and, fingers crossed, make money. But two, I like that Apple hosts everything, right? So I think going back to what we were talking about in regards to like scalability, right? So if you do have, and I think this is one of the reasons why kids, or I said kids, but why people are
yeah,
creating mobile apps. It's mostly kids. Like, let's be
yeah,
honest, from what I see in my Twitter feed,
yep,
are creating mobile apps is you don't have to deal with a lot of that headache of, okay, like my app just went, super crazy viral on, TikTok or wherever, and now I have to deal with the headache of like upgrading my hosting from like my $30 plan to 200 or 1,000 because Apple handles all of that. And because of that, there's less that you have to worry about in terms of security, right? Because if you're paywalling it, then you're not going to be getting people coming in trying to like figure out little exploits and things like that, as well as you're going through the Apple review process. So they have all of those things in place where they're going to tell you like, hey, don't do X, Y, and Z. So it eliminates some of the headache that it is associated with web-based apps.
For sure. Yeah.
But it is a completely different beast. But yeah, I think that's kind of like next on my, ideas list. And then going back to that idea that I texted you, my thought is that we're in like this weird window where, anyone can create an app, and that will essentially open up the floodgates to everyone creating an app. And when everyone can do that, I think it brings the app's value down to zero, as well as I think OpenAI, Gemini, all of these LLMs are well on their way to becoming the everything app, meaning you'll just go to that app if you want a mortgage calculator, and that's just a simple example. Or if you want to, if you want a Duolingo clone, you'll just say, hey, ChatGPT, make this, do this, and always keep it in my, in my chat so I can go back to it because you have a memory. Make it look really cool, gamify it, do all that, and it'll just spin it up. It can kind of do that, like not exactly, but like if you go into ChatGPT or Claude or wherever, Claude has artifacts, but ChatGPT has Canvas, Gemini has something similar. And you can kind of create these types of apps. Like if I'm like bored one day, I'll just go in and be like, make me a Tetris clone, and I'll play Tetris for 30 seconds, or like Flappy Bird. And that's where we are right now. So just extrapolate that out 6 months, 12 months, year, 2 years, and you'll be able to create pretty incredible apps just in your ChatGPT or browser or wherever. So I was thinking like in this my idea was, well, if anyone can do that, the value then gets flipped directly over to the community as well as the distribution model, which would be in this case like the creator, right? So my thought was partner up with these creators, say, hey, we will create you an app, preferably like an AI powered app, and we'll do it for free, and we'll take X% of revenue and manage the back end and like things like support, and you essentially can just promote it to your audience and get passive income. The reason I was thinking that was everything I just mentioned, but also I really like the performance marketing angle or performance marketing strategy in the agency world, because it's a very high risk, high reward. Because if you get the right clients, you can scale it to an incredible like height, because you're essentially riding their wave and you're getting unlimited upside. So yeah, I mean, I think we're going to see some of those agencies pop up because it's becoming just so easy to create these types of apps. But yeah, I'd be interested to hear what you think of that model. I know we kind of talked about it before, but
yeah, I used to, when vibe coding stuff all came out, I had the similar notion where execution goes to zero. It all falls on the other sides, the idea and then the distribution. But now what I've realized too is like I don't think any technology probably ever that will go up against human laziness.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. No, 100%. I agree.
I think in our bubble, in our our community and the people that are not just doom scrollers, I guess, all of us will experience that, I think, for sure. Like we will do those things. We will, make the Tetris game, or we will go and do those things. and we'll show our friends and they'll be like, oh yeah, cool, nerd, and then go back to, scrolling or whatever.
Yeah.
And I think that like you and I are definitely in the mindset of like production, not just consumption.
Yeah,
And I
sure.
think that's a very small percentage of the population still.
Sure. Yeah. 100%. I do think it grows.
It
I don't know what it looks like. This
it does grow
is all
for sure.
theory. Yeah.
Yeah, it does
I'm
grow for
just,
sure.
yeah, I'm really just trying to extrapolate out what does this look like in the next 2 to 3 years?
Yeah, I mean, I think it will grow, and everybody that would have done those things will be the ones who take advantage of those things, or the people that are in those circles. And then also, I think a lot of younger people that are like 8 years old now, when they are 15, 16, 17 years old, in the next 10 years, that is the cohort of people that I think that grew up with these tools that are, I think is going to be very fascinating because they might have a different outlook on that type of relationship between production and consumption. But then going to the agency model, I'm kind of doing that right now. So not to the point where we're doing it for free, but it's definitely a heavily reduced rate compared to what like a normal dev shop agency would have charged somebody in the past, where the only upside is that initial development. And in certain cases, I'm also taking equity basically in the company in exchange for advice and expertise on how to run a software company with certain you need to do certain things or avoid certain things based
Sure.
on
Yeah.
like what you're trying to do. But the concept is there, like find people that have distribution, build something that has enterprise value with those people, and then use the built-in distribution to scale it up, and then everybody makes money on the rise, and then potentially do some sort of exit. Or where I think things are going to be going, because execution is dropping, I don't think it goes to zero. I think what we will see is, instead of there being like 10 companies that are worth billions of dollars, we'll see a million companies that are worth $1,000 or $10,000.
Yeah.
And
I get what, yeah, I get what you mean. Yeah, it's going to essentially distribute the wealth amongst more people because more people have access to the ability that top companies only had because they were able to hire the best senior software engineers. And now ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini is that senior software engineer times 100. And now everyone has access to them. And the only thing stopping you from going from A to Z in terms of creating an app is just your idea.
Kinda. My thought process is like, it also goes against this notion that AI is going to take everyone's jobs. That might be true when you look at a company like Microsoft laying off 10,000 people every week, or whatever it may be. I think that is a skewed example, because I think they're just a overbloated company and they're using AI as an excuse to lay off all those people.
Mm-hmm.
But what I think happens is, like, if there's 10, in theory, if there's 10 companies in the market for you to go to get a job with, versus 10,000 companies that are available to get a job with, I think the amount of jobs actually increases, because the people like you and me are going to be the ones that are creating one of those 10,000 companies.
Right.
The likelihood of us being able to get to, 1,000, 10,000, 100,000, maybe, in the millions of revenue is decent. It's much more achievable than trying to make the billions of revenue.
Right.
And what I think a lot of people are realizing, and I started to realize this a couple years ago, was like the $1 billion moonshot is not the only option.
No, no. Yeah.
Like building a mid-level, a few $1 million cash flowing, growing, profitable business is one of the best things like in the world in terms of, in my opinion, like mental health and
Yeah.
life quality and happiness and fulfillment and all these things.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people will be able to find, like, if you launch this app and then all of a sudden you make not $1 million, but if you make maybe 5, 10, 15, $20,000 a month, like that's enough money to like be able to either, level up your life quality of life or, do new investments or I don't know, there's like that changes the fundamentals, I think.
Oh yeah,
And
100%.
at some point you would probably need to bring in, oh, I need someone to help me with support, or I need someone to help me with marketing and yada yada. And like if there's 10,000 of those companies or 100,000 of those companies where everyone is making these apps that then get turned into companies, like there's going to be so many available jobs for people in those companies.
Oh yeah, yeah,
And it won't be
100%.
at an Apple or at a Google. It'll be at, Joe Schmo's startup.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think about the AI jobs thing frequently, and I go back and forth. And one, I one of the things that I think about, I've thought about recently is that when we'll have companies, be laying off people. We do have on the other side, a lot of industries where jobs are needed. Like, we have this whole teacher shortage. We have a nursing shortage. We have a lot of people in the technical trades, which is why it costs so much to build a house or do anything like that, because we don't have a lot of contractors or plumbers anymore. A lot of the rates of those jobs have been, going down. So I think when we do have, I look at it more as like a restructuring. I know the media tends to like really push this narrative of like, AI is going to take everyone's jobs and it's going to be like this terrible thing. And one, that couldn't happen overnight. This is like a decades long thing, right? Because we're kind of still in the infancy of a lot of these AI like tools like ChatGPT.
Yeah.
But two, I think it will force a lot of like a restructuring of the workforce so that people that were in a certain job now go to a job where, they, where they're more needed. So I don't think it's like this doom and gloom situation either. And to your point, I do think that a lot of people are going to look at, creating their own thing. And maybe it's not necessarily, oh, I'm going to do this and make $1 billion company, but it's more of like, I'm going to create an app or I'm going to create some type of AI specific or use AI in to create a product or a service-based service business. And this will then afford me to pay my mortgage and my bills and my car payments. And I think we're going to see more and more of those types of builders as the years go by because of the vibe coding tools, because anyone can essentially start to, build these types of applications.
Yeah. And that quick dopamine hit of going from like idea to text prompt to something is like insane.
Oh, it's the best. I mean,
Oh, I can actually do this. Like, this is insane.
that's what got me hooked on
Yeah.
digital marketing. I remember I had no idea how to code, and I pulled up WordPress, or I figured out, I think I Googled one day like how to build a website, and I got a WordPress tutorial, and I was like, WordPress, like what is this? And I installed it. I think one night, actually I know for a fact, one night it was like a Friday, and I had a few beers, and I was like, And like I didn't have the money to play around. I was a broke like right out of college student. I was broken right out of college. I didn't have the money to like play around with like, throwing at hosting and buying a domain, but I had a few like beers, and I had looked up like, how to create a website, and it like walked you through the steps. And so I'm like going through the steps. I bought the domain, I bought the hosting, and then I installed WordPress. And I was like, great, I'll figure this out tomorrow. And the next day I woke up, I was like, oh, wonderful. I spent like $40 on hosting and a domain and doing all this stuff. And like it essentially forced me to like learn how to build on WordPress. And when I figured it out, it was like the start of my new life. Like I was like, I can't even believe I figured out. And I had I took basic HTML, CSS in high school, not even like PHP or JavaScript, anything like that. And so I didn't really know what I was doing. And the fact that I could go from not knowing anything to creating a website was incredible to me. And that's kind of where we're at like now, is like anyone can, with like any technical skill ability, can like get that idea out and get that dopamine hit. And once you have that, let me tell you, it's like the best thing in the world, especially like for people like us, because we're like entrepreneurial and we like I love building things. It's the same reason why I like creating content is I like taking an idea and like molding it in like molding it like you'd like mold something out of clay, and then see it come to life. And it's really special. Even when it like at the end, you're like, it's not that great. Sometimes it's still kind of cool to see the whole process come to life.
It's the dragon that we're all chasing, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then the money thing is the next thing, because when I figured out affiliate marketing for the first time and I got my first sale, like I created a website, went through the whole process, and I built a blog talking about, I forget what the first affiliate blog that I did was, and you get that first sale, it's insane. Like you're just like, I can't even believe I built this. Someone gave me money essentially for something that I was like asleep when this happened.
Yeah.
So I'm still chasing that feeling.
Yeah.
Like,
I think we all are. Yeah,
man. So
cool. Any content or recommendations this week?
I mean, I think, to kind of follow along with this whole like theme of this this talk that we've had, is people if anyone's listening to this and they're thinking like, that sounds really interesting, but I don't want to sign up for like Lovable or any of those right now, I would say start by just taking an idea that you have and then telling either ChatGPT or Claude or whoever you use to create it as like a website or a little mini app by using the Canvas feature within these LLMs. That will give people that tiny little dopamine hit, because a lot of people, they don't even realize that those things exist. But if they just kind of say, hey, make me a Tetris clone that I can play in my browser, it'll kind of get the gears spinning of like, oh, okay, that these tools can do these things. And then they can kind of move on to the next step, which is these vibe coding tools like Lovable. And then they could be like me and move from Lovable to Claude Code or Cursor or wherever.
Yeah, and you could even take it one step further. If you don't even know what you want to do, just be like, ChatGPT, based on our entire conversation history, give me 10 ideas of what I could build, and then start there.
Yeah, exactly. Just get the gears spinning and just create something. Yeah. Oh, Ross is...
Mine from this week is, so Mark Andreessen dropped the Techno Optimist Manifesto.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Pretty hilarious name for the book, but it gets the gears turning for sure. And it goes along with the kind of, I think, that larger conversation that we had today about impact of AI on the larger scale of humanity, and how, in general, you should be running towards these things, not away from them.
Yeah, 100%. I take that same, thought process, that same optimistic approach.
Yeah. So cool. Well, yeah, good chat today. And yeah, thanks everyone for listening, and we'll see you guys next week.
See you next week.